G'day and welcome to another video. I thought it might be a good idea before looking at the flight footage to give a bit of perspective on the flight today. So I'm using some Google Earth here just to show you whereabouts I'm flying. Flying in the southeast part of Australia as per usual, and we're going to be flying into the beginnings of the Great Dividing Range, which is Australia's longest mountain range, which runs along the east coast here. And you can kind of see from this map most of the mountainous area of Australia is found in this little section along here. So it's a little bit of a different flying experience than most other parts of Australia. So as per usual, starting from Benalla, this little town out here, and you can see as we head out to the east or southeast, we'll be moving across some foothills towards Mount Buffalo here. And I can use the 3D view here to give you a bit of perspective on that. There's the airfield we're starting at, and looking out this way to towards Mount Buffalo. This first section of the flight is fairly normal. There's a lot of flatlands out here, but as we start to move towards the foothills here, you start to be restricted a little bit. In gliding, much as all aviation, you always want to have options, and when you're flying towards hills or mountains, you're going to be restricted in the places that are landable more than usual. So it's important to always have those options, and as I move across this way I'm going to be thinking more about, okay, where is it I can land if I don't encounter any more lift. And this first section is fairly easy because there's options out to the north here. You can see quite flat, big paddocks, but certainly as we go a little further past the King Valley in here, we already start to get into less, places where there are fewer outlanding options. So you just got to be super sure about the places you can get to and make sure you have more than enough height to get to them, so you never run the risk of having to make a forced landing somewhere. This is Mount Emu here, one of the larger peaks on the way to Buffalo, and beyond Mount Emu here in this valley there isn't a whole lot of options. As you can see, there's plantations and forested areas, so I need to make sure from this section here that before I cross to Buffalo I have enough height to where if I need to I can make it over here, which is north of Lake Buffalo, and there's some options for landing over here. Once that happens I can again cross over. There's maybe an option or two over here. You've really got to assess that, depends what crop's in on the day, what time of the year it is. But yeah, across to Mount Buffalo here, the intention was get to the Horn, which is the highest point on the mountain, as you can see there, which is a height of about 5,500 feet. When we're around the Horn here, we again are restricted by options. There's nowhere to land on the top of the mountain, and if I'm to look to the south, there is absolutely nothing. Nothing we can really get to. So I've got to make sure that when I'm around this area, I can either make it back to, again, north of Lake Buffalo, or actually continue on the other side of the mountain to Porepunkah and these surrounding towns where there are a few more paddocks to land in. This was an early flight in the season, so the conditions weren't super great for cross-country flying, but we got some decent heights, and you'll see what I encountered on the flight. I started off flying with a mate who had a bit of a struggle and got a bit low to around the infamous town of Moyu. So that person actually headed back, and I did the last 2/3 of this flight by myself. But yeah, a little bit of perspective on where we're flying. It's one of the really nice options we have from our Benalla Gliding Club, is the ability to head out to the north and the west into this wonderful cross-country area, but then also explore among the hills of the Great Dividing Range. It's generally a different type of gliding that's done when you're, well, first of all interacting with ridge lift, but also the kind of decision making needs to be a little bit different, because you tend to be closer to the terrain than you are when you're in the flatlands, where if you're 10,000 feet, you're 10,000 feet above the ground usually. Here we can be at 7.5 and be level with the hill, we're level with the mountains if we're further out this way. Anyway, that's a bit of perspective for the video, and let's get to it. Alright, so here we are. We've obviously taken off, started on task, and headed across that flat area that I was talking about before. So we're just starting to get into the foothills here now. My cruising speeds this flight, you'll see, are relatively slow. We're not trying to race around, just trying to tiptoe along and conserve as much altitude as possible. So a lot of feeling the air going on, just flying slowly and seeing what the glider's telling me about the air that we're flying through. And I'm heading over to this little cumulus at the moment, see if there'll be some lift over there. You can see buffalo out on the right hand side in the distance with the rock faces. I put a little bit of water on the aircraft just for the launch, so we've got about 30 litres each wing, which isn't much, but I do find this aircraft flies a little bit better with a bit of water on it, even on the really weak days. Viewers of this channel are definitely familiar with this cockpit. This is the LS7 owned by the club that I was renting today.
Tango Bravo, you still on station?
Hey Sam, I'm still scratching over Moito.
Okay.
That's Tango Bravo, the other aircraft that was going to come to Buffalo with me today, having issues over Moyo.
Juliet is 6,400, pushing on towards Buffalo.
Copy that.
So this flight also...
Track back towards Vanilla at this time at 3,700.
Okay. I'd better luck in the foothills, maybe try staying a little more to the south.
So there's a few things going on there. Tango Bravo still struggling at Moyo. I edited out a very slow climb just there, so you can see we're a little bit higher now, 6.3. Continuing on to Buffalo because we've got some decent height. There's also that pesky fly floating around you've seen. I think I tried to get him a few times, and in the end I just decided to let him come along for the ride. Tango Bravo took more of a northerly track towards Buffalo. It was more in that flatter area out to the north of the track as I described. So he was experiencing different kind of weather than I was, because I crossed a lot of those little foothills and they gave me a couple good climbs, which is why I've ended up a little bit higher and further down track than he is. Sometimes you just get lucky though, with picking a good line and bumping into a decent thermal like that. So let me know also in this video whether you like me having edited out a lot of the really slow, crummy climbs in this video. See if that makes it a little more interesting. A bit more of the cruising going on, as well as just another flight with a bit of a explanation about decision making. So we're directly above that King Valley, if you can recall. So beyond this, Mount Emu, which is a little bit off screen to the right, and then that big valley with all the plantations is an area I need to stay high over. We're doing decently well at the moment. The clouds were going up to about 7,000 today. Not that we were able to get right up next to them though. Obviously the height that the thermals were going to wasn't the same as cloud base. And another thing to consider flying out this way is there is a little bit of airspace restrictions. There's a large regional transport airport in Albury, just to the north of here, and there's an airspace step, so there's a certain altitude we can't climb above even if the thermals are strong and going that high. We won't be in danger of busting that today though. for Victorian residents. That's Myrtleford down on the 10 o'clock position there.
This queue now looks like it's falling apart. It looked really nice 10 minutes ago.
So as I've talked about before in previous videos, the cumulus clouds that glider pilots tend to fly towards cycle, and that one that I was going towards a few minutes ago, out just to the left there, now looks like it's disintegrating, which generally is going to mean there's not much lift under it.
If it's not good, I'm going to push to the south. There's a few good clouds over that way too. And if I can climb to 6,500, maybe 7, then I'll shoot across the gap to Buffalo, which is this range here.
So there's another decision based off what that cloud was doing, since it's almost completely gone now. If you've been paying attention to the last 30 seconds, I'm going to continue a bit more to the south, where the clouds look a little bit nicer, and I'm going to get that height of, in this case, 6,500, 7,000, which is a lot more than is required to cross the gap, just to be super comfortable about my position in the sky. Begin to see Lake Buffalo out on the right hand side there, so I'm well within glide range of those landing
The
options.
cloud's disappearing, but is the thermal still here?
So under that little wispy cloud there was just a bit of lift. I've edited out that long slow climb, so back into the cruise again now. Another 500 feet over about 5 minutes, so not the best climb rate. There's also a southerly wind today, pretty much at all altitudes, so that's also going to influence where the ridge lift is going to be, which is something that I haven't really discussed before. The easiest way to visualize it is when the air doesn't have the ability to take the path of least resistance around an object and it has to go over, you get this air that's moving upward, much like a thermal, so you get lift when you're flying near those ridges that air is moving up along.
That's pretty smooth. And if I get in the center of it.
That is a nice thing about flying on these calm days earlier and later in the season, is the thermals are pretty smooth. You're not bumped around too much, that's for sure. It's quite relaxing.
Now let's try this one in the middle of the valley.
Just trying out a whole bunch of different clouds on a climb. The astute glider pilots amongst you might notice there seems to be a bit of wave activity further deep into the mountains, out onto the right and to the left. It looks to be some sort of lenticular clouds forming, but spoiler alert, I don't get anywhere near those today. mountains are quite good for wave most of the time, or Australian wave generation. So you can definitely get good amounts of it. Last season I got 15,000 in some wave with a mate.
And it's a 10 to 15 knot southerly, which is down there, so if I can stay on the south side of that mountain I should get a little bit of ridge lift.
That's just like I was saying before, there you go, it's that many knots of wind. So the southern face of these hills and mountains will be the ones that will be generating the ridge lift. On those opposite sides, so the northern facing ones, will have likely the opposite effect, the downdrafts, as the air moves back down the ridge. So you always want to fly on the upwind side of ridges and mountains when you're gliding, if you're trying to gain height, that is. Buffalo is also quite a rocky mountain. As you can see, there's a lot of rocky outcrops up ahead, which particularly in the afternoon sun warm up, and you can get a very good combination of thermals from the hot rocks and ridge lift. So you generally get reliable lift on the western side of the mountain, which makes it easily accessible from Benalla. Even relatively inexperienced mountain flying pilots can quite safely get to this peak and have a bit of fun around it.
That highest point there is the Horn.
Just on the end of the nose there.
The Horn of Mount Buffalo. And actually there's a really nice looking hue just to the south of the peak there. That might be the climb to 10,000 it's meant to be over the mountain.
That was the weather briefing I'd looked at earlier in the day before launching. It said there's the potential for thermals to go to 10,000 feet. And those clouds there look to be a little bit higher than the ones that we were interacting with a bit earlier. There's also some hang gliding that happens at Mount Buffalo. On the northern side there's a little launching pad, I guess it would be, that they jump off. And if you get a northerly wind they can have a lot of fun as well. I think it's world renowned actually, Mount Buffalo, for hang gliding pilots. You'll occasionally see them, but they don't tend to be on this southern side here because they don't have the same glide ratio as us to get to where they would have to go for an outlanding. It'd be like this glider flying with full air brakes out is still, I think, a little bit more glide ratio than what most hang gliders have. And as we were talking about options, certainly as you can see now, out to the right a bit there, there is no good landing options. I'm relying on the LD performance of my glider to make it back to the north side of Lake Buffalo, or around on the other side to Porepunkah. You can see though there is the odd road winding around, and the long outcroppings along the ridge of these hills down to the right look like they might possibly be landable if you had to, but that's the power line transition lines. I think most places in the world that's how you can tell them. They just chop down the trees all around them. And that's deep into the mountainous southern part of the Great Dividing Range. Mount Buller and Hotham and the ski fields are out that way for those that ski. This is in November, so there's no snow on them at the moment, but there may be other flights coming up in the next season where you can see a bit of snow on them. just not at this point.
Juliet, Tango Bravo.
Go ahead, Tango Bravo.
Setting off from Glen Rowan to Vanilla. Currently 5,200.
Okay, I'm 5,000 at Buffalo.
So that's Tango Bravo letting me know he's definitely committed to going back to Vanilla. He's at Glen Rowan, which is probably only about 25
And in need of lift, I better get some lift.
and 25k to the east of Vanilla, so he should be able to make it back.
Push beam down, 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 down.
And we're just watching out for each other in case one of us outlands and the other needs to go get them, which was very likely for this day. It was quite marginal. I don't think there was any other gliders at all that launched this day. I think we were the only two. For cross country, that is. There was, I think, a few other normal launches for training. So approaching the rocky southern side of Mount Buffalo here, I'm thinking, well, there's going to be that southerly wind plus the nice warm rocks. I should be able to get some lift around here, but as you can see, there hasn't been a huge amount, so I'm just kind of enjoying the scenery and thinking, I might have to turn around and make it back to somewhere that's landable soon. I have a kind of a cut-off altitude where if I descend to below, in this case 4,500 feet, then I would just go straight back to an outlandable paddock, giving myself that safety margin. I know the distances here, and I've got my navigation device that can also assist me in knowing how far I can fly and how high I have to be to make it back to somewhere that's landable. It's pushing even further to the south here, giving it kind of one last chance to provide. I also want to make sure I don't cross over the spine of the mountain and then get low, because then I'll be forced into landing on the other side of the mountain, which is not really what I want to do. The retrieves would be a lot quicker from the western side rather than the east. Doesn't look like there's many places to land, but at about 2 o'clock there, those are those paddocks to the south side of Lake Buffalo, and I'm comfortably within range of those. You can see we're pretty much underneath that little cloud that we saw just to the south of the mountain, and there's not a huge amount of lift. Saying that, there's a turn or two I can try there. It's not very consistent or strong though. That's the horn, just at the top on the right there. So another 1,000 feet and I'd be able to get over it, but unfortunately that hasn't been the case. Kind of lost a bit of height travelling to this southern side here, thinking that's where the good lift would be, and certainly hasn't been there. And like I was saying before, even though we're now at 4,800 feet, our altitude to the terrain is a lot less than that, so we need to make sure, particularly if we're thermaling near mountains, that we're not going to be in any danger of getting too close for comfort. But I've had my fun. We're going to head out back towards Penella now. I've realised, looking at the time of day as well, there's not too many hours left of cross-country potential, so I need to make sure I can get back to Penella comfortably within that time period. And considering how weak the thermals have been, I want to give myself more time than I think. If I need to spend more time thermaling and really struggle on the way back. So not quite getting over the horn as intended, but we've had a good look. Buffalo, giving it a good shot, and we're going to head on back. You can see at this altitude here we would not be able to make it over Mount Emu, so we're definitely going to need another climb to make it back to Vanilla. You can see Lake Buffalo out on the right, so we don't have any concerns when it comes to places to outland, but we're going to need a bit of height to make it back to Vanilla. Another probably 4,000 feet in total, and then cruising at a slower speed after that, just to make use of that height as best as possible, extend our glide. So that's another little edit, another long time for not much height there. It's looking a little more comfortable, but still one more good climb required to get out of this valley here. I do have confidence seeing those nice cumulus up ahead though, and with closer inspection, given the height that we're at, we can definitely do closer inspection. Those paddocks just down to the right, south of the lake, they are definitely landable, at least today. You can see as well there's a lot of high cloud cover on this direction, which is back towards Vanilla. It's going to be blocking out a lot of sun and suppressing the heating. There's not going to be as much thermal activity the longer that top cover is over, and the thicker that top cover. Another factor that's typical of the mountains and hills around this area of Australia is they're not very sharp. They tend to be quite shallow in the descent, so you have to go quite a distance to be a higher amount above ground than you perhaps would on mountains that are a lot sharper and pointier. And that is me dumping my water ballast. Definitely don't want to outland. I don't care too much about speeds at the moment. So let's dump the water, get a bit lighter, hopefully climb a bit easier, and make it back. And just as that ringtone had proclaimed, ding ding, that was a nice thermal. Almost back up to cloud base now, 6,600, so really comfortable now. Again, almost at cloud base. You can see these two big cumulus that we saw a little earlier have increased in size substantially, and there's decent lift for the day. Beyond this area though, out to the west, as you can see, there's not too many clouds left between me and Benalla, so I want to make the most rather of these climbs right here. Took everything out of it, and now cruising over Emu back to Benalla, and I'm pretty sure that if I was in completely still air, that I could just about make it back to Benalla from this altitude. That's what my computer's telling me, that's what my gut tells me, as well as the kind of mental maths I do based on my altitude and glide performance. Of course you want to have a lot more than is required just to absolutely guarantee you can make it back. So it's going to be a bit of a long cruise here, so I'm going to quieten down for pretty much the rest of this flight and just let you guys enjoy the pure glide.
I just need one more good thermal and I'll be easy home. But right now it's really line ball.
Yeah, so this final glide that I started certainly hasn't gone to plan. There's been not really any lift. We made the odd trying turn, seeing if there was a thermal there or not. I'm not covering as much distance as I would like to, so I'm going to actually end up having to need one more thermal of about 1,000 extra feet to make it back.
That's the one. If I can just get 1,000 feet out of it, I'll be comfortable.
And yes, I did get enough height out of it to make a comfortable final glide back. So no more climbing required. We can start our final glide again, and hopefully it'll be the last one.
Traffic light at X-ray Juliet Juliet is 10 miles to the east, 3,700 inbound. Another traffic glider X-ray Juliet Juliet is 5 miles to the east, 2,900 on descent for long final onto 26 grass right. Okay, let's get the gear down. Gear down and locked. Flaps don't have any, so undercarriage is now down. Speed 60 knots, please.
One other thing I've been noting is that southerly that we've been experiencing the whole day is definitely strengthened. So there's quite a lot of drift going on. You can see I'm pointing from my perspective to the left of the airfield, so that our track back will be in a straight line to 26 right where I'm landing on. That southerly is also going to mean as I'm landing a little bit crosswind, the glider's going to want to try and put its right wing down, and you'll see how I'll try and manage that and how this landing goes.
Pull a little brake soon. Traffic glider X-ray Juliet Juliet is long final for 26 grass right. speed down, shall we? Udi's telling me to check my gear. Gear is done. And down.
So yeah, as per normal, here's the track on OLC. You can see on this one a lot of messing around at the start of the flight, getting low, pushing out a little bit, and then coming promptly back to the airfield. So the climbs aren't good. And then after one nice slow climb, finally heading out over Glenrowan. There's Moyu, where my friend got kind of trapped low, and I took a bunch of thermals there, pretty much not going down but also not going up either, until finally making it into the foothills here of the King Valley. Got a half decent climb that kept me going, and higher, finally up to, that's 1500 meters, using that to cut across, and that's where the video starts. So I'm heading over along the peak towards Emu here, just past Lake Buffalo there, out to the peak, messing around for a while, and finally coming back. Some more really slow climbs here, and then the cruise all the way, and then having to take just one more, and then all the way back. So I don't have any of the usual pictures that I tend to show at the end of my flights, but I do have this one, which I took the day after. Very interesting, ominous looking sky there. And because we didn't get above the horn today, here's a separate photo from an unknown source showing the horn there in all its glory. Thanks for watching.